whatever time it might be as you're tuning in now to Rock and Roll of Ages with my friend and co-host Rocky Hatley coming to you from Dallas, Texas. And hi, B.A. Bartell here from Cleveland, Ohio. And we're going to spend our first show, our inaugural show, you might call it, as a tribute to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and we're going to actually go in class by class. Today we'll just start with the class of '86, which included such rock and roll luminaries as Chuck Berry, Elvis Presley, Little Richard, James Brown. I'm not going to name them all here because we will cover them one by one. And Rocky and I were just talking about the Everly Brothers and some of the interesting information. What were you telling me about who inducted them?
Oh, the Everly Brothers was Neil Young inducted them, and I'm like, the Everly Brothers and Neil Young just don't go together for me. It's like, how did some of these people get chosen to induct, like Sean and Julian Lennon inducted Elvis?
Right.
For example, an example of a good match is Quincy Jones inducted Ray Charles. Perfect match.
Because he produced them, I think, at one time, did he not? Yeah, I thought I was correct in that.
I get choice. Yep. And I get Keith Richards doing Chuck Berry.
Yep. Oh, sure. Absolutely.
Hell, Keith Richards said that, you really do have to know every lick Chuck Berry did, and he did. So,
well, here's another great example. Bruce Springsteen inducted Roy Orbison, and although Bruce was, a big name in rock and roll at the time and probably brought some presents to Roy's induction, he's like, with all due respect to Bruce, he's like the anti-Roy Orbison, who Bruce himself referred to as the voice. Bruce does not have the mellifluous, great voice that Roy Orbison. You would have thought somebody with a better singing. Hell, Michael Jackson could have inducted him for all that matters. But, it was
because, Bruce is like, born in the USA. I was born in the USA. And that's just not Roy. So
no, and he writes great songe, Bruce Springsteen. So, I give him credit. Yes. He belongs in there. But whether he was the correct choice. One good choice, Paul McCartney did induct John Lennon. Which I thought was
a good one.
They put their, he put his differences aside with Yoko. She asked Paul to do it, and he gave a great probably one of the greatest induction speeches. He wrote like an open letter to John, even though it was like 12 years after John had passed. But it was a very touching way that he handled the induction ceremony, and it was all about John, not about Paul, and not about the Beatles. It was about John as a solo artist.
Oh, yeah.
But, you make a good point about the Everly Brothers with Neil Young. Neil, did country stuff, and, of course, he didn't have the best voice either, but he wrote great songs, and he probably could have been a big fan. I don't know that Neil was a big fan of the Everlys. I would have thought more rocking choices or even country choices. He would have been into like Johnny Cash or Willie Nelson or somebody like that. But nonetheless, that is an interesting thing. I had forgotten that is what occurred. But yeah, they've had some bizarre choices there.
Oh, then you get Herb Alpert inducting Sam Cooke.
And
now that's a real good one.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a connection because of A&M Records or because of the fact that, both Herb Alpert and Sam Cooke were out in L.A. Maybe, Herb at the time, I don't think he owned A&M Records or had started A&M Records yet. But I think at the time he might have been doing some production work or engineering work or something and somehow knew him. I don't know. I've read biographies of Sam Cooke, and I never saw that connection. One would have thought that, like, I don't know if I'm sure you're acquainted with Bobby Womack, who wrote some songs, and then he did get inducted eventually, too. He ended up marrying Sam Cooke's widow, there was no, like, bitterness between Sam Cooke's family and Bobby Womack. You would have thought Bobby Womack would have inducted him, but who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe because he wasn't as well known as Herb Alpert. I mean, Herb Alpert was, a record recording industry legend at the point that he did it.
Oh, so. Yeah. And then now an example of a great choice to induct is Billy Joel inducted Fats Domino. Both piano players, both, I mean, they do similar things in terms of the piano.
Great showman, both of them.
Yeah, great showman. Yep, absolutely.
And Billy Joel, a lot of his songs, like you said, were piano related, and so that was probably a good choice. And of course, maybe the Rock Hall tries to get people who are like somewhat well known. I mean, who would we have known that inducted the Go-Go's? I mean, Drew Barrymore was somebody that everybody knew, and she kind of gave a unique presentation when she did it. Tom Hanks, I don't know why, of all people, the Dave Clark Five picked him to induct them. That's a little-known secret. I don't know why. Most people, if you ask them who inducted the Dave Clark Five, they look at you with a blank stare. I don't know why Tom Hanks was chosen, except that he was a big fan of the group, and he thought that their induction was long overdue, which I agree with, but that's another story.
Yeah, that's true.
We'll get to them down the road when we get to their induction year. So anyway, back to 86. Where would you like to start?
You want to start alphabetical?
Yeah, sure, why not? So Chuck Berry we start with?
Inducted by Keith Richards.
And your thoughts on Chuck's getting in?
Obvious. Well, I mean, we're talking the class of 86. There's no, how did that happen?
No. No question in our minds, like, what the heck were they thinking?
Every single one of them, yeah.
I could use none of that. Besides heck, but, we're going to try to keep the program clean.
Yeah, that comes down the line here on, how did that happen? But, or why has that not happened? That'll come down the line, too. But, yeah, I mean, Chuck Berry, basically, for me, he just kind of took rhythm and blues and gospel and then turned that into something where the guitar was the main melodic element in it. I mean, and he also turned. He wrote songs that told stories, really, like Johnny B. Good, Maybelline. I mean, these are story songs.
Johnny B. Good, the part where he says something about a young country boy. In reality, he had written the lyrics "Colored Boy," but because of unfortunately the views at the time in the late 50s, mid to late 50s, he decided to go with "Country Boy" because he figured it would cause too many problems because of the segregation that existed at the time.
Well, there was, and that was also during the same time that Emmett Till was murdered. And that went obviously nationwide news, and rightly so. I mean, that was exactly. And Chuck Berry. Now this is hard to imagine. Chuck Berry, who we grew up with too, was born in 1926.
I know.
I mean, he would be 97 come October.
Yep. And he died 90. It was I think shortly after I started with Wixie.
Oh, yeah. He was 90 years old.
There, although I'm no longer with them. It was one of the first years I was there, and somebody came on. We were at a weekend gig, and somebody came out and said, "Oh, by the way, I just heard on the news that Chuck Berry passed away." I said, and he was 90 or something. So
he was.
Of course, I had to play
2017.
His live version of "Reelin' and Rockin'," which I think is probably one of the best tributes to him. But a song full of double entendres, but none. Did I pronounce it correctly?
And you were mentioning
entendre,
or whatever. We got it. But no, we were talking about Dave Clark Five earlier. They actually covered "Reelin' and Rockin'."
Yes, they did. Nice version of it too.
Yeah.
That may be on one of my favorite. If I had to list 5 songs that Dave Clark Five did, I might just throw that one in there. Rocky, thanks for bringing that to my attention.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh no, but with Chuck, you got guitar players like Ted Nugent said, if you don't know every Chuck Berry lick, you can't play rock guitar.
Well, that is true.
And that is true. And
he opened the
John
door
Lennon.
for the.
Yep.
John Lennon had made the comment that if you try to give rock and roll another name, you might as well call it Chuck Berry.
Exactly.
And he was the most copied guitarist. I mean, his songs were done by virtually a lot of the groups of the 60s, the Rolling Stones, the Beatles. Oh, good Lord. I mean, Grateful Dead did versions of his songs. I mean, where do you begin?
Oh, gosh. Yeah, even Buddy Holly.
Yes,
did,
absolutely.
Brown-Eyed Handsome Man, and Carl Perkins did a couple. Roll Over Beethoven and Johnny B. Good.
Which comes to mind when you said Buddy Holly, because that's another song that Chuck had to change the lyric to. It was a brown-eyed handsome man. His original lyrics were brown-skinned handsome man, and again, he thought there'd be problems and changed the lyric to brown-eyed handsome man. And of course, Buddy Holly could do it. Because...
And that was still in a time when Chuck Berry would tour, and he wouldn't get to stay at all the hotels.
I remember.
As famous as he was, as wealthy as he was,
same thing with Sam Cooke, Ray Charles.
Sam Cooke? Oh, yeah, Ray Charles. Exactly.
Motown. When Motown did that Motown swing through they called it the Chitlin Circuit, but when they went through the South there, they had to stay at separate facilities. So,
oh, man, and you don't want to eat chitlins. Oh, my gosh. Ugh.
Aren't those innards? Some sort of innards? I've never had
pig
myself.
intestines. Pig intestines.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, what's it called? The Irish food, haggis or whatever.
Haggis. No,
Scottish food is haggis, yeah. It's intestines. Haggis, yeah. Thanks, but no thanks.
Alrighty.
No mountain oysters for me either.
My father, I told you about that. He ordered me a plate of those, and by gosh, I was either going to eat that or nothing. So,
did you know at the time that's what they were?
No, not until after a couple of bites. Then he told me.
Oh God, I would have waited till like you were past the meal, like a day or two later. My father could not wait for the punchline to one of his jokes. He had to let it happen before it was appropriate. So, at any rate, my mom slipped out and got me a burger later on, so that was fine. Yeah, I would have stopped eating it at that point. Although, from what I understand, it tastes like chicken, so, So does allegedly rattlesnake and alligator. Everything tastes like chicken.
No, it doesn't. No.
I know. Big
rattlesnake tastes like, I've had rattlesnake. That's actually not that bad. But, the rattlesnake roundup down here in Sweetwater, Texas.
People... they turn up their nose at stuff. Like, most people, you say the word sushi to them, and they're like, ooh, raw fish. But, until you've tried it, don't knock it. Because I would have had that same attitude until I actually ended up trying it, probably back in the early 2000s. And I know we've digressed here a little bit, but it was an interesting food to eat. You put a little bit of, just a smidgen of that wasabi sauce on there, and... Mm-hmm. I mean, your throat and your nose will be on fire just from smelling it and tasting it. But other than that, it's not bad if you put it on like raw fish. I've had like the raw tuna and the raw shark steak and what. It's just, I mean, people existed on that for centuries, generations back in the day because before fire, and even when there was fire.
Yeah. Well, let's why don't we move on to the hardest working man in show business?
Oh, James Brown. All right.
Yep.
We can say a lot about James too. Well, it is. He made an interesting comment once, and this is just sort of an aside, and I should probably put my glasses on. He once said of Elvis that he taught white America to get down, and James went on and told everybody to get down. And he has been, as you mentioned, been called the hardest working man in show business, Mr. Dynamite, the godfather of soul, soul brother number one. And one I added was the father of funk, because funk music would not have existed without James Brown. He and Sly and the Family Stone kind of came in around that same time, like late 60s, early 70s, and added a new subgenre of pop or rock music called funk, and James, is primarily responsible for that. And we could discuss. Oh, I don't know. He was basically, apparently, if you've ever seen live performances of him from like Live at the Apollo or from the Tammy Show, he was sweating profusely by the time. I mean, he was just constant motion the whole time that he was performing, and you could just see, if the camera panned on his face, you just see the sweat rolling down, onto his shirt and everything, and off of his forehead, and it's like, that guy would really worked it. So.
Yeah,
James Brown is another great example of a guy that should have been in, and there shouldn't be any question.
No question. And which didn't he sing? I mean, he actually could sing. I mean, he sang in a choir at one point, didn't he? A gospel choir.
Yeah. When he first started out, he did like a lot of in the late '50s, a lot of like slower songs like "Try Me" and "Please, Please, Please," where he emoted the gospel sound, sort of. He wasn't doing like that. Where he was like you couldn't basically make out what he was saying a lot of the time.
Like that. Like, wow, I feel good.
And here's a great way to.
Was it Eddie Murphy that did the the James Brown imitation where you can't understand a word he's saying?
Yeah, he said he ran into him backstage, and he goes, "Hey James, great show, how you doing?" And James Brown said, "Hamman." That was James Brown's response to Eddie. And I can understand. Or as Eddie said about James probably sat there and said, I got this great song called "I Got You, I Feel Good." What's a good way, that I could probably put an ending to the song? Oh, I know. Wow. Or what does he say? No, he goes, ha! And that's it. The end of the song.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, gosh.
And he was a taskmaster, from what I understand. He would fire band members like right while they were performing. He would fine them if they missed a note. Yeah. I mean, he was like a stickler for like protocol in terms of being there on time, looking well, not being drunk or high, and then of course make sure you play the right notes at the right time. And he would actually fine the guys, his own players, if they got caught doing something they shouldn't have done or blew a line during the song. So, I mean, for somebody who, you would think would be like really laid back, I mean, he was like basically like a taskmaster.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of showed up in his personal life too sometimes, didn't it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, with wives and girlfriends. And I can't remember how many times he's been married. Really is neither here nor there. Basically, unless it has some reference to what we're talking about, there's probably no reason to talk about each artist's personal life. Including Chuck, who had his run-throughs with, the law in some cases and probably was wrongfully convicted under the Mann Act, but we're not going to get into that. One of the interesting things is if you ever heard that song, Get Up Off of That Thing, and I was reading a little blurb about it last evening, he did that song. It went to like number 4 R&B and hit the top 40. The reason behind the song was James got a little irritated because people were sitting and like listening and while sitting to songs that were like funk songs, and he got pissed off, and he basically like told them, get up off of your asses and dance. He goes, you're not here to just sit and listen, we're playing funk music, get up and dance. So that's when it inspired him to write that song, Get Up Off of That Thing and Dance Till You Feel Better. So
there we go. Oh, well, shall we move on down the list to Ray Charles?
Yeah, sure. Yep, Ray is next. Go ahead, fire away.
Well, I start with this one. Is that my mom's all-time favorite song ever? I mean, there was no second place. Was "I Can't Stop Loving You," which was Ray Charles doing a old Don Gibson song.
I was going to say, I thought that was a country song to begin with.
Yeah, it was a country song, but it was number 1 on the country charts, but it also crossed over big time to popular music, to pop music.
You talk about Don Gibson's version or Ray's version?
No, Ray's version. Ray's version crossed over. Don Gibson's version really kind of Don Gibson was a better songwriter than he was a performer, without question. But
is he the one that wrote "Oh Lonesome Me" also?
Yep.
I know Neil Young did a version of "Oh Lonesome Me," and I think I have a version by Don Gibson too. Yep. Sounds, well, with the way Neil sings it, it sounds entirely different. But yeah, same.
And
song.
actually, of course, this is slightly off topic, but Don Gibson wrote a song called "I'd Be a Legend in My Time," which Ronnie Milsap had a crossover hit with that one. And so anyway, But yeah, Ray
it's
Charles
not off
is
the topic
one.
if you're talking about music. Anything music related is we're on topic. I mean,
That's true. Yeah.
When I started talking about eating sushi, is that we kind of got off the topic.
Well,
that's okay.
We can always edit a little bit.
We're human here, and we're not perfect, and there are going to be times we admittedly will make mistakes, and if we have to edit them out, fine, and if we don't, we just leave them in.
Well, my editing program does have the if it comes to that, but no, Ray Charles. He was one of these that he really did sing soul. He really was kind of a pioneer of soul music.
Well, I Can't Stop Loving You, I believe, and I think Georgia on My Mind, those were on that album called Modern Sounds in Country and Western Music, which his record company told him, don't put that out. It's never going to sell. You're not a country artist.
Yeah.
Why would you even bother? And it went to like number 2 on the charts, the album, and the songs were like probably some of his most popular, like in the case of Your Mom, I Can't Stop Loving You. And, of course,
she loved Ray Charles anyway.
Extremely.
Yeah, she loved Ray Charles anyway. But I Can't Stop Loving You was her all-time favorite song ever.
Which leads me to the segue that
yes.
he is universally claimed to be the most popular African-American performer ever. More so than Michael.
Okay.
If you're looking generation by generation, you got to figure 50s, 60s, 70s, even into the 80s, he was doing commercials and stuff, and he was well known. So, and his music is still extremely popular amongst aficionados of rock and R&B and soul. So I can understand that.
There's not a lot of people you can say. We'll cover him, talk to him about him later. But Elvis, Ray Charles influenced Elvis Presley.
Sure,
and
I'm
Aretha,
sure he did.
and Stevie, obviously Stevie Wonder.
Oh yeah.
But Van Morrison, Billy Joel. All
Sam
of
Cooke.
People. Sam Cooke, absolutely.
Because they both started, basically trying to bring together both secular and gospel music, and
gospel music.
Both were successful
blues.
in doing it, but I think Sam Cooke followed in Ray Charles's shoes.
Yeah. That was just he's just an amazing performer.
Yeah, you were talking about people doing versions of his songs. I never knew this, but I knew Johnny Cash did a version of Busted. What I did not know, and that's probably one of my favorite Ray Charles songs, but in the song, Johnny Cash's version was released first, but although it's a fantastic version, it never really went anywhere. And then Ray, who basically, it was a country guy that wrote the song. Harlan Howard, I think, wrote the song Busted.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
And Ray Charles, after he did it, his version obviously went higher than even Johnny Cash's. Because as somebody
that
put
is
it,
one of my favorite songs. Yeah, Ray Charles.
It might have been Harlan Howard that said, he put a little soul into the song. So
yeah. Oh, and What'd I Say? That's
classic gospel sound.
Absolutely, and and everybody did that. I heard Jerry Lee Lewis live do What'd I Say?
Oh yeah.
In one of his concerts back when he in
did
the 60s actually.
A recorded version of it too, not just live.
He did.
The other one that the other one that did Elvis in one of his movies did What I Say. The one with Anne Margaret. The name of the movie.
Viva Las Vegas.
Thank you. I failed to remember it, but you just reminded me.
That's okay.
Yeah, he's covered by a lot of artists. Jerry Lee, Elvis, Bobby Darin. I mean, everybody did Ray's stuff. I would think a lot of modern artists would cover his stuff too.
Oh yeah, well, someone from a little bit later who I wouldn't have thought this, but someone who lists Ray Charles as an influence is Roger Waters from Pink Floyd.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. See, you learn something new every day because I had never, ever known that. I mean, as much as I love Pink Floyd and followed their careers and stuff like that, I never knew that Roger Waters was a big Ray Charles fan. So you've given me a bit of trivia that I will carry to my grave, Rocky. So
there we go. There we go.
Yeah, that was interesting. I mean, you would think because, I mean, he went a completely different direction. But
he did.
A lot of his songs use nice harmonies and stuff. A lot of their songs, despite the heavy use of instrumentation, they did have some nice harmonies and stuff in some of their songs. So, and sort of a soulful, not really a soulful sound, but a rhythmic sound. With all due respect, your picture went away.
Oh, it'll that's okay. Don't worry about it. It does work out on the final.
It comes in through on the final thing, even though it
it will.
Away here.
Absolutely. Okay. Yep. So let's see. Speaking of, we were talking about Sam Cooke a lot before we actually have come to him now.
Right.
So, I mean, Sam Cooke was born 19 days after my father.
I'm sorry, I missed that. Your voice
Sam Cooke was born 19 days after my father.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
So he'd have been in his
22nd.
He'd be in his mid-80s then? Your dad?
No, he'd be 90. Sam Cooke would be 92. He'd be 92 now.
Oh, wow.
He was born January 22nd, 1931.
I didn't know your dad would be in his 90s. Well, I guess that makes sense. I guess that makes sense, depending on showing, based on what we're... that's... Yeah, but...
And like my dad, he died young.
Yeah.
So, Sam
his
Cooke
wasn't due to illness, unfortunately.
That's true.
It was due to some unfortunate circumstances, which to this day are still
up in
questionable.
The air.
Yes. They think they just let the lady off the hook that did the shooting, but he died in an unfortunate manner.
Hotel
she was
proprietor,
like a
wasn't
manager
it?
or something. Yeah, she was like a hotel manager. And he apparently showed up at her office like half dressed and like going nuts because he sort of brought it on himself. He got caught with a prostitute and she took his money and I think his pants. So he showed up like in his underwear and was knocking at the door and he was going crazy and she thought he was threatening her and in her fear.
And she claimed it was self-defense.
Yeah, and I doubt that very much. He was, if you're in your underwear or you're stark naked, you don't have a weapon. I mean, he was tall and thin.
Consider a weapon.
Well, that's true.
He had a prostitute, so he had something working.
That's true. God, poor guy. Yeah, his.
Oh gosh.
And like I said, he was like what, 32 or something like that. 30,
yeah, 33.
Okay. Shame.
Yeah, and he was born in Clarksdale, Mississippi, a town I know well because I had two cousins born in Clarksdale. We used to go there a lot. I mean, to visit. And,
his father was a reverend, just like Aretha Franklin's and Marvin Gaye's. They were ministers. His dad. In fact, obviously, I know you are aware of this, but for our listeners' benefit. Sam Cooke was a gospel singer. In fact, had done a number of albums with a group called the Soul Stirrers. And when he crossed over to secular music, as they called it, which was the pop market, it caused quite a controversy amongst the gospel crowd because they thought it was like the devil's work to do pop music, especially rock and roll. And so, of course, Sam had to live with that as well. But he did well enough that it didn't bother him that much.
Oh yeah, and
he brought that soul, that gospel soul, to popular music. And
You Send Me and Chain Gang and Twisting the Night Away. He's just and he went solo in 1957-ish. something like that.
In the late.
Okay, because he was with
that's
that.
when You Send Me came out.
Yes. Oh gosh, what was the name of that group?
Soul Stirrers.
Soul Stirrers. That was it. Yes, thank you. Yeah.
Big influence on Marvin Gaye, Aretha Franklin, and Wilson Pickett, all of whom started out in gospel.
Yep.
Jackie Wilson as well, and then they eventually crossed over into the pop market. But he was like probably the first one to do it. Ray Charles, even though his songs were gospel tinged, he never really sang or released recordings of gospel music.
But the whole thing is that everybody we've talked about so far, and everybody we're gonna talk about, there was a lot of gospel influence in them.
Oh, sure,
a lot of gospel influence in early rock and roll.
Well, if you go to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and you ever see that movie where they talk about the early influences, in fact, the Soul Stirrers are considered an early influence on rock and roll.
Yep.
The Carter family. Caucasian, but they did a lot of gospel music and country music. They were also somewhat a quasi-religious group, I guess. I'm not as
not really.
Acquainted.
They did some. They did, but yes and no. They did both because they did what was that? Hang on. Oh shoot! It'll come to me. But I actually, but the Carter family was known for Wildwood Flower, which my father played on the guitar, and my ribs ached for a week after we saw Maybelle Carter play it live at the old Sportatorium in Dallas. There it is, son. There it is. There it is. I'm like, I can hear it. Would you?
Oh, he kept elbowing you. In other words,
elbowing me in the ribs.
I was trying to figure where you're going with this. Yeah, why your ribs hurt listening to a song. Now I understand. Your dad was
just
giving you the old elbow.
Yep. But yeah. Oh, come on. Oh, it'll come to me. But yes. Cupid is another Sam Cooke. Wonderful Sam Cooke song.
I think you said Another Saturday Night. Twisting the Night Away.
Twisting the Night Away, yep.
He did a song that was done after he heard Dylan's Blowin' in the Wind, and it was released posthumously in '65, but it was called A Change Is Gonna Come. And Otis Redding did a version of it, and it was like a song about, became an anthem of the civil rights movement during the mid-'60s. And he had heard Bob Dylan doing Blowin' in the Wind. He says, well, if that white guy or that young white fella can write a protest song, so can I. That's Sam Cooke saying that, and so then he proceeded to record and release "A Change Is Gonna Come," and I do stand corrected. It was a posthumous hit for him, but it was released just 11 days before he was, he was unfortunately shot and killed. So
yeah. Oh, gosh. Well, how about Antoine Domino Jr., better known as Fats?
A.K.A. Fats Domino.
One of my favorite autographs. This was a humble man, despite all of his success. Let's see. I'm sitting here. It says, to Rocky... see, luck always from your pal Fats.
Oh boy!
And then
that's a cool way he did it.
Fats, yeah, your pal, as though we were buds.
Oh yeah.
No, and he was one of those that he always maintained his humility throughout his entire life.
He was friendly to the fans. He signed autographs.
Yep.
He
signed autographs. Yep.
He saw the audience as like the people who made him, and that's the way that these, prima donnas should take into effect. These divas and prima donnas that exist nowadays that, don't give autographs, ignore people, basically.
Yeah, either that or charge $100 for an autograph.
Exactly, or hop in their limousine and just ignore the fans that, waited after the show to see him. And then there are some of them who go through and shake hands and do the occasional, autograph signing, which that's good. They should.
Yeah. And we'll get to him later, but Carl Perkins was one of those, too, that he would hang out with the fans after the show. I mean, he was very humble man. But that one I saw for myself. I mean, I shook Carl Perkins' hand.
Oh, cool.
Ain't that cool? Yeah.
Yeah. You should have grabbed the autograph. Wait, do you have an autograph picture of him?
Carl,
this is an interesting part because you have all those probably what are considered collector's items now, which is autograph signatures of these stars where, they actually signed them, there's authenticity to them. It's not just like a secretary with a stamp or whatever.
Exactly. I know. I got, I took, Carl Perkins signed a picture for me. Sure did. Oh, Too Rocky. Too Rocky.
That's what I'm saying. When they personalize it, that's what's cool.
Oh, man. Yeah. And the thing is that artists could usually tell when you wanted it for you as opposed to you just wanted to try to sell it, which actually that didn't really start coming in until later on. But, please don't personalize it. Please don't personalize it because I want to get $150 off of this thing. As opposed to, please, it'll be so cool if you made it to Rocky or to BA or to whoever. I mean, it's great.
That's why some of those books that I've got, it was my Pepsi can opening,
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. No, that's all right.
Some of the books that I've had signed by authors over the years, there's a few of them that are personalized, and I'm like, great. They're like, well, do you want me to just make it out generically, or would you want your name on there? I'm like, yeah, put my name on there. It's telling me
actually,
that
Kathy
you
Valentine
signed it for me.
Yeah, Kathy Valentine and Nina Schock of the Go-Go's asked me, do you want? I'm like, please put Too Rocky on it. So yeah.
Did Mark have him do that too, or did he just do the generic?
Oh yeah. No.
Oh, good.
No, he prefers them. Mark doesn't like them. That's my brother. For anybody listening, but no, he likes them to him because he doesn't intend to ever sell them.
Right.
But
his estate may be down the road, but yes.
Oh, that's true. That's true. But now, actually, the odd thing about Fats is that I love everything he does, everything he's done. But my favorite song is a song that was written for him, not by him. And that's Walking to New Orleans.
Oh, okay. Was that...
Yeah, I mean, somebody wrote it. I forgot who wrote
Neville?
it. But,
one of the Neville? No. I don't, hold on.
Might have been. Let me look at it, yeah.
I don't have it in front of me. I might know who wrote that song.
Here. Anyway, I'll just keep right on talking here. But
I might have it here right
Walking
for you, Rocky.
to New...
Just want people to know we're doing our homework.
That's right. We're just doing this, and since some of this is going to be audio only, they're not going to be able to see that me twisting around here in my seat and you funneling through some papers, although they'll be able to hear that. Oh gosh. Oh, and yeah, Fats was Elvis was always proud to say that that Fats Domino was a huge influence on me when I started out. And, of course, they knew each other in Memphis. So...
Who's this, Elvis and Carl Perkins now?
No, Elvis.
Segway.
Yeah, no, Elvis said that Fats Domino was a huge... And he and Fats Domino, Elvis and Fats Domino knew each other in Memphis. So,
okay. What was Fats's I thought he was out of New Orleans. What was his connection to Memphis?
He was, but he also because I mean he was blues singer, and so he played Beale Street a lot. Yeah, absolutely. So, but yes, he is known for the New Orleans sound, and he spent most of his life. He lived in New Orleans.
Two things real quick when you're done there. First of all. Walking to New Orleans was Bobby Charles.
Bobby Charles, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then he also had written another song for Fats as well. And Fats liked his song so much that he said, write me another one. And he said, if you need to, I'll come and get you. I'll drive you to New Orleans. And Bobby Charles' response was, oh, hell. He goes, I don't have to, you don't have to come get me. He goes, for you let me do this. He goes, I'll walk to New Orleans. So then the inspiration came to him, to Bobby Charles, to write "Walking to New Orleans." So, and the other thing about,
we also can't. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead. The other thing about Fats is I don't think a lot of people are aware of this, that he was the most popular selling artist, rock and roll pop artist of the 50s, with the exception of Elvis. He sold like 70 million records. People aren't aware of that. They always thought, there was probably like your Carl Perkins or Jerry Lee Lewis or something, because they
or even Little Richard or
exactly.
Chuck Berry.
Exactly, and he outsold them all, which I found interesting. When I learned that, I'm like, oh, well, there's something I never knew.
I didn't know that either. I had no idea about that. We can't get away from Fats, though, without talking about two covers of one of his big songs. And that song is Ain't That a Shame, that was covered by both Pat Boone and Cheap Trick.
Pat Boone's version we could do away with.
It put a lot of money in Fats' pocket, and Fats Domino acknowledged that.
He loved the fact that he got the royalties. Yep.
Well, songwriters.
You heard the story about Pat Boone wanted to change the lyrics because he didn't figure it was grammatically correct to say "Ain't that a shame." Wanted to change the lyrics because he was a college student at the time to "Isn't that a shame?" And his manager said, "You're not touching the lyrics." Or his producer, whoever the record company said,
"Right,
nope, you're not touching those lyrics."
That was the expression in the South, is "Ain't that a shame?"
Ain't that a shame? Right. And
it's not.
Cheap Trick's
Isn't that
version,
a shame? Yeah.
That
was a great version. Yeah, that's a great version.
It rocks from beginning to end.
Yeah.
If you could put up with all the young Japanese ladies in the audience screaming for the lead singer at the beginning about the first, Robin. They're all trying to get his attention as he's like walking on stage, and you listen to about the first like 50 seconds of it, and it's all just this like screaming rows of Japanese females going nuts to see Cheap Trick. Obviously, it was live at Budokan, and but it's a great song, and they do a kick-ass version of it. And what was I going to mention about that? I don't know. I guess that's it. I did have the opportunity to see them do it live. I saw them. This is a great concert because I got to see two rock and roll inductees at one concert. It was during ZZ Top's 50th anniversary tour. When their bass player Dusty Hill was still alive. He passed like a year or two later after they had toured.
Yep.
And so he ended up what I want to mention. They ended up doing a live version of the song, and fantastic. It was just, sounded just like the album. So it was really cool. And it was
the thing about Fats, right around like 57-ish. 57 was a great year. Both of us were born in that year, and should have said that.
That made it great just for that fact alone.
That's true, and it also, the 57 Chevy is just a iconic car.
Classic.
And in 1957, Fats Domino actually said, "What they call rock and roll," I'm quoting here, "what they call rock and roll now is rhythm and blues. I've been playing it for 15 years in New Orleans."
Yep. So he had something like 9 number one songs and like over 40 top 40 songs on the R&B charts prior to him ever doing anything pop music. He was extremely popular on those charts, but virtually unheard of, on the pop charts until, was it Blueberry Hill? I forget which song was first.
I shouldn't tell this, but if necessary, I can cut it out. But you remember that old, no, never mind. Forget it. I'm not going to tell it. I'll tell it to you off camera and off mic.
Blueberry Hill was 56, so that might have been his first. And something interesting about that, I never knew this, and I'm just when I was doing some research, I saw. Well, the song went to number 2 in the pop charts, number 1 R&B. Fats never had a number 1 song, ever. Sort of like Creedence Clearwater never had a number 1 song. Yeah. There was always something that topped whatever the song was at the time. But Blueberry Hill went to number 2. But it was also, I didn't know this, It was written by Gene Autry. It was actually for a 1940 Western, Blueberry Hill. And Glenn Miller had a hit with it in 1940, and and they were instrumentals. Louis Armstrong had a hit in 1956. Wow. And then Fats had that version, and it was done by Elvis Presley, the Beach Boys. So I never knew that.
I'm going to tell the story. I'm going to tell the story. I just have to. But basically, this boy was late for school, and he goes in there and just kind of sheepishly sits down in his seat. And the teacher's like, "Boy, where have you been?" He said, "On top of Blueberry Hill." And then another boy came in late. Said, "Boy, where you been?" Said, "On top of Blueberry Hill." So then this young girl comes in, and nobody's seen her before. Said, "Excuse me, you're new into the class. What's your name?" "Blueberry Hill."
I thought that's where you were going with that.
Oh, and on that sad note, I guess we
got enough time, almost an hour, or go to the Everly Brothers.
Head to the Everly Brothers.
Yeah, let's go to the Everly Brothers. And actually, and maybe tomorrow we'll continue with the rest of the class, because we still have Buddy Holly, Elvis Presley. Yeah. Who else? Hold on.
Jerry Lee.
Else. Jerry Lee Lewis. Yeah. There's like 4 of them left.
Yeah, Richard Wayne Penniman.
Yeah, Little Richard, Jerry Lee Lewis, Elvis Presley, Buddy Holly. There's the 4.
Buddy Holly, yep. Okay.
We covered 5 today. So there were 9 in that first class, which all deserving. I mean, if I had to vote, it would be like unanimous, 9-0. There's not one I'd have any doubts whatsoever. And actually, the class of 87 looks pretty much the same way.
Yeah. Well, the earlier classes are, because you're having to actually go back now and
pulling all the pioneers of the sound,
and
right?
The pioneers are always. I mean, we're not going to find any that you and I would have a question mark until much later, most likely. So
coming up next, let me just drop this brief thing. Coming up next in the next couple of shows, we're going to get to the class of 87. But for you listeners out there, 2 little trivia questions. Number 1, the class of 87 had the first female inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Rocky knows the answer, and I'll let him say it, but we'll see if you did. Second one is...
Well, actually, what I was going to do is...
go ahead.
Just say, folks, you can contact us on Twitter at RockRollAges. You can also email us at rockandrollafages@gmail.com. That's Twitter at
Send us the answer. We'll see if you know it. I won't say what it is.
Send us the answers.
Here's the second question then, since you're going to do that. Keep going, Rocky. Gmail.com. rockandrollafages@gmail.com. That's the email. And, check us out on Twitter.
And at
Facebook.
Roll Ages. Facebook, Rock and Roll of Ages Facebook page. You can check us out there. So, yeah, just have a grand old time. And I'm not going to tell you what the answer is.
No, we're not. You're going to have to tell us, or we'll let you know when we get to it. Second question is, the first group was inducted in the class of 87, because if you notice, everybody we've discussed so far about 86, and we will continue to discuss on our next show, is all solo artists, pretty much. I mean, they had backup bands playing with them, obviously, but they were solo artists. They were inducted as solo artists. But we will get to the first group coming up in 1987, and no cheating. You can't go to the internet or Google or anything like that. You got to do a little research.
You don't even have to do that. You just ask Alexa or ask Siri these days. I mean,
yeah, but that's if they want to win the prize. I'm just kidding. There's no prizes here, folks. But if there were, you'd have to do a little research. Looking it up on your cell phone as we're talking. So
that's right. Actually, I'm sitting here and looking at this. We've done 5. We'll have 5 left to do next time.
You want to do 5 next time then?
Why don't we just drop it right here and just kind of finish up a little bit and kind of give everybody chance to catch their breath, and hope you do come with us next time. Because
all right, so, we'll be continuing the show for 1986's inductees. Rocky and I will be putting it out there. We will be taping that show tomorrow, and we will put it out there for all of you folks who love to follow rock and roll and are interested in the where-tos and where-froms and whys and everything that is involved in
wherefore art thou
pop music. Right. Oh, yeah. Always that. Where are they
Already.
now category of rock and roll. So, all right, my friend. Everybody have a great day. We will continue tomorrow in this scintillating conversation about all things rock and roll and pop music from the 80s, or from the beginning to the 80s and beyond, right here at Rock and Roll of Ages. Thank you, Rocky. Manana.
Thank you, sir. All righty.